similarity to some degree with what's happening in Iran now, or are there significant differences?
Trump, Netanyahu, but also Mohammed bin Salman are really not interested in an open, democratic, sanction-free Iran. Iran has the second largest oil reserve in the world, the third largest gas reserve, about 90 million of inhabitants, and that's for a very strong internal market that, for instance, Saudi Arabia does not have. It's a country that could easily become the hegemonic power in the region in a matter of few years. Trump, Netanyahu want a controllable Iran and not a free Iran. And this is the point of connection with what you were referring to the coup of 1953, which deposed the democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. So let's say that as also some point of connection, despite all the differences with the coup of 1921, because I want to remind you that the British authorities largely imposed on Iran a violent and illiterate army officer known as Reza Khan, that was the founder of the Pahlavi dynasty. He immediately suppressed all form of opposition in order to consolidate his personal power. Now, moving forward 32 years, so what you were discussing just a few seconds ago, Mossadegh was a secularist, a component of the Iranian conservative oligarchy. He was very keen in defending Iran national integrity. His policies, as you were mentioning, were very unfavorable to Western interests in the area because the nationalization of Iranian oil was seen by London as a threat to British interests in the area. And in many ways, these events, the event of 1953, laid the ground for the most popular revolution in modern and contemporary history, because the revolution of 1979 in terms of participation has been more popular than the Russian Revolution, than the French Revolution. In that revolution, all sectors of the Iranian society participated, and this has much to do with the fact that Mohammad Reza Shah was erasing any form of dissent through the SAVAK, through the secret police. So let's say that in many ways we see this process of oppression that created massively many of the conditions that arrived later. So the main point of connection between the two is somehow to stem the flows. And in another way, we say that certainly now in Iran there is a regime, also a brutal regime. But if we don't look at the roots, it looks like that somehow this regime came from Mars. Mutatis mutandis is what we see also with Hezbollah, with Hamas, in other contexts. So if you don't know the history, it seems that these movements, they came from Mars. So even persons that are very critical of them should know the roots from where all this come from.
In terms of the methodology that's being used by, or maybe used by Israel and possibly the US in terms of regime change. We have seen, of course, historically, the US attempting to do this in other countries such as Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, none of which has really been successful. Are we seeing the same pattern being repeated this time, or are we seeing a different pattern happening in Iran?
Certainly, there are several points of connection. It's difficult to predict the future, but we have seen from Libya to Afghanistan to Iraq, then the positive reverberation that, for instance, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, was promising in 2002 in front of the US Congress when he was discussing the importance of toppling Saddam Hussein. We didn't see any positive reverberation in Iraq and the rest of the region. Now, I want also to stress that in the specific case of Iran, the revolution came first and Islam followed, meaning that somehow the lay and secular component of the revolution of 1979 was very much dead, and somehow the Islamic character became a key element only at a later stage. So we must say that every time there are this kind of process of regime change, we see that there is somehow a return of religion, of a certain understanding of religion. And so could be, if this would succeed, maybe that this is very much the same situation nowadays.
If I understand it correctly, I mean, one of the fundamental elements needed for prolonged regime change is, of course, that it starts from the people upwards. It has to be something that the people of a country desire, which we saw illustrated in Bida's report about what happened in the 1950s. In your analysis, is there any indication that a similar situation is existing in Iran at the moment?
I would say the last time I was in Tehran, a conference that I was organizing about non-proliferation weapons with the Italian Ministry for Foreign Affairs, I was encountering a lot of also students, local students, and they were very keen in pointing out that they refuse this out-out game. So in a way, they don't want to side neither with external powers that want to clearly exploit the situation on the ground. At the same time, they are very careful on not justifying any form of despotism in order to fight this external power. But certainly at this stage, when you see your entire country that is being bombed, not only nuclear facilities, but also, of course, civilian houses, hospitals, and so on and so forth. So certainly also people that are extremely critical toward the regime, they unite themselves. This is a millenary people. This is a millenary, of course, civilization. So in that sense, they feel clearly that the only nuclear power in the region, that is the State of Israel, and the only power that used a nuclear weapon against civilians, that are the United States, are telling them and teaching them they should not somehow pursue any nuclear weapon. The JCPOA, of course, was a possible solution of that, but we know that Trump and Netanyahu had a different plan about that.
It's really interesting to get your thoughts on this, and we appreciate you being with us on Al Jazeera. So, Lorenzo Kamel, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.